Welcome to the grip. Hey, before we get started, I just want to tell you about my friends over at swing365golf.com. State of the art simulators. There's one right here, right down the road from my golf course, but there's 13 of them across the United States. And visit their website, swing365.com, to see how you could be a franchise owner. It's an awesome simulator. You don't have to deal with any humans. You register for a membership like a country club. You go when you want. You put a private code in at the door, bring the boys, bring the kids, bring your friends, swing365golf.com. So thank you for sticking through that. It's very important because we want to put a wood wall here, a real one, not one of these Amazon shower curtain fake wood walls that are like maybe a 12-year-old girl's TikTok. Anyways, let's start at the top with news. LIV Korea this week, LIV Spain next week. So we got 2 weeks back to back. If you're a LIV fan, this is prime time. And since New Orleans has been moved to never maybe, or the fall, there's going to be a big gap before the next LIV event. So just do a couple housekeeping news items with LIV, and then we're going to get into the drama that's unfolding with the LIV business plan, the bankruptcy, and some other stuff. So I think the biggest news coming out of Korea is the Korean Golf Club. It's their event this week, right? Like the Rippers in Australia, the Southern Guard in South Africa. The Korean Golf Club gets a chance to show off its wares, to play good golf, to really push its brand to their home country fans. And we'll see how passionate they are. Word on the ground is ticket sales have been really good for Korea. But the big move Korea Golf Club did was they kicked out Danny Lee just a week before the event in Korea. And I know he's been struggling of late. His form isn't there, but there's a couple issues with that. So he's going to be a wild card, which works this week. But because there's some players out we're going to talk about, but in the future that will exceed the 57-man roster or 56-man roster LIV has. So I don't know what's going to happen with Danny Lee. Now, Korea Golf Club picked up the #1 player in the KPGA, the Korean Professional Golf Tour. His last name is Moon. And the thing about the Korean Golf Club is I can't pronounce any of their names except for Ben An. I just can't. I tried Mi Young, Hong Sao. It's literally foreign to me. So I struggle with some of those names. But Moon, I read up on him. He's a great golfer. Let's see what he does. He's just recently won a few weeks ago, and maybe that's the spark the Korea Golf Club needs leading into their home country battle this weekend. Also on LIV News, Tyrrell Hatton's missing this week. And you would see headlines that say Tyrrell Hatton to miss LIV Korea. Oh my God, is he leaving? And then you click it, and then you read inside. Tyrrell Hatton's wife just had a baby, so congratulations, Tyrrell Hatton. You're gonna have to be careful the way you talk to the golf ball and the club and the course when you're out there getting pissed off. Looks like Phil is also out this week again. So Phil is just out. Whatever's going on with Phil, we keep him in his prayers. And this is like the first time in my life where I've been following golf that Phil and Tiger are nowhere near the golf course as there's tournaments happen. And that's kind of crazy. What else do I got? I'll make sure I don't miss it. Okay. And then AK, rooting for AK in Korea. He's in the top 5 of the LIV. The U.S. Open exemption is the #1 ranked player in LIV that's not otherwise exempt. And so that would leave Thomas Dietrich and AK, I think. I didn't write the list down. But Dietrich might be qualifying for being in the top 60 in the world if he puts in another good performance. And then AK, if he can just put in, he's got to win or come in the top 3, I'd imagine, and then he would qualify for the U.S. Open. The bummer with AK is he could have went to any of these qualifying events around the country. That's where like Peter Uihlein, Caleb Surratt, and who else qualified last week? Peter Uihlein, I can't think of the other one. We talked about it last week. But AK could have played in those because the top 10 in LIV automatically moved to final qualifying for the U.S. Open qualifying tournament. So he didn't do that. Hopefully he performs well in Korea. So let's jump in to the drama. What's happening? Do we start with Bryson or bankruptcy? Actually, even before we get there, I thought of something. And if you're a fan of LIV, I think this is going to help you rest easy and to help you understand that LIV is probably going to exist, not just next year, they're going to exist. They're going to get more sponsors, and they've brought what? $500 million, $500 million in sponsors the last 2 seasons. And the sponsorship is going up. The viewership and content engagement is going up. The live attendance at the LIV events is going up. And that's important for potential sponsors and investors, because when Brooks Koepka left and Patrick Reed left, the headlines were, it's writing on the wall. Brooks Koepka leaving, Patrick Reed leaves. Nobody cared about Patrick Reed. Now, Brooks Koepka, he's a big box office name, probably one of the top names they had. But what happened this year? Nothing. Everything went up without Brooks Koepka. The machine keeps going. It went up without Phil. And Lee Westwood has missed some events. It went up without him in it. So the LIV machine is going to continue, because around the world, it has already built up a successful brand minus the debt of contracts, for which Saudi Arabia, the PIF, already paid for. LIV has not offered a ridiculous contract for 3 years. Okay, John Rahm was the last big contract, reportedly $300 million, but no one knows. And that debt is probably very small 3 years later. I mean, who knows? Maybe in a 5-year contract at $60 million a year, whatever it is, there's something sizable left on his contract. Let's just say it's $100 million. He's the one in the press conference at the PGA Championship, when they asked him, he said he realizes we'll have to give up some concessions to make LIV work. So even John Rahm is on board, understanding that he'd give up some money. So let's talk about this leading into LIV Korea, leading into the discussion of the bankruptcy and the business plan. Here's why LIV isn't going anywhere. If you look at the LPGA, the Champions Tour, the Legends Tour, that's the senior tour in Europe, and the DP World Tour, they have a big problem. They're all in debt. They're all running at a loss, right? And they don't have those big contracts, but they have huge debt. Like the DP World Tour owes over $30 million since every year, since they partnered with the PGA to turn into a mini tour for the PGA. That debt comes due in 2028, right? The PGA Tour is in debt, but the LPGA, they lose money every year. And here's what the point of this conversation is. The average viewership on a Sunday in the United States for the LPGA, you ready for this? Because this means everything according to the golf media, that no one's watching LIV, so why would anybody want to invest or sponsor that? The average viewership for the LPGA on a Sunday in America is 139,000. 139, that's average. Now, they have majors, and 2 of those majors have got up to over 800,000. So they do have a couple events where they can get some okay viewership. But for the most part, only 140,000 people are watching the LPGA. And huge sponsors like Kroger, Mizuho, KPMG, they sponsor their events. They give big prize purses. Okay? Like, why? If there's no viewership, why would anybody want to touch that? Well, they do, because the LPGA doesn't promote themselves as, hey, 150,000 people watched us. No, they'll pick an event and then they'll be like, this event had 7 million impressions. So between the people that watched it and then the social media shares and engagement and content, they now promote 7 million. Well, if an investor finds that attractive, obviously, because the LPGA hasn't gone out of business, just one post for LIV around the world gets like 20 million in engagement. Whether it's negative or not, it gets shares, it gets commented on. So the LPGA, as far as live event attendance, as far as TV viewership, and as far as just overall experience and popularity, has nothing on LIV. Therefore, a sponsor who wants to be in golf, if they had a choice, they would probably take LIV. Then there's the Senior Tour, the Champions Tour of the US. Their average Sunday viewership is 154,000. That's it. 154,000. Yet they have sponsors like the Principal, and they also have KPMG and some of the big golf brands. Well, why would somebody want to invest in that? Nobody goes to those events live. Nobody. And they have all of yesterday's stars. Nobody's attending those events. All right, how about the DP World Tour? That must be the one, because the Golf Channel, Paul McGinley's always saying that the DP World Tour, the courses they play is why guys like Rory McIlroy and the European Ryder Cup team keep winning, because that prepares them for it. Well, that's bullshit, okay? Because Rory McIlroy only plays in the minimal DP World Tour events, same with most of their team, which is 4, which is why John Rahm was pissed they wanted him to play in 6, not fair. And that's it. They moved to America. Why? To get rich, to chase the money. So when they get in an interview and say it's not about the money and the LIV guys are greedy, bullshit. Now, Rory would live in Ireland, where he grew up, where his family is, where his roots are, and he just play on the DP World Tour. But no, he wanted to be rich, just like the guys that went to LIV. But their Sunday viewership, this is crazy. Average viewership, United States, Sunday, DP World Tour, 18,000. That's crazy. So if you add up the Senior Tour, the LPGA, and the DP World Tour, you get whatever that is, right? But you know what it's not? It's not the LIV average, not even close. LIV Virginia on a Sunday had 420,000, and it peaked at 1 million. 420,000 viewers, according to the Nielsen ratings. That's more than all those combined. If you were a sponsor interested in golf, would you rather go in front of 419,000 or the 18,000 on the DP World Tour? This is why LIV's not going anywhere. There will be an investor, okay? There will be more sponsors. That's why they continue to grow. So that's a pretty crazy thing to step back and put your intelligent hat on and say, wow, even LIV Singapore, it's Sunday, the overnight audience, when it's not even meant for the US market, but everybody seems to want to argue it. So here's the bullet points to argue this. 70,000. So when you're supposed to be sleeping in the world's most popular television market, 70,000 people still watch LIV Singapore, where 18 only watched the Patrick Reed win in Bahrain. So it's crazy to think about. People literally think they're being intelligent and shitball and LIV. Well, all these other tours, they're saying LIV guys will go play the Champions Tour and the DP World Tour. Nobody's attending and nobody's watching. So it doesn't make sense. LIV isn't going anywhere. They're moving forward. And now we know that because all the players are 100% confident in it. And no executives have left. No players have announced in the media that they're leaving. And they could probably leave right now. Half of that field's not even under active contract, right? The big names are still, but they could still probably just get out of it because everything has changed. Everything has changed. Oh, here's a contract for 5 years. But then in year 3, oh, we're ending at the end of this year. Well, okay, force majeure. And I'm not going to get in there and be a bankruptcy and contract attorney, but that's just basic stuff. Just step out of the contract if you're really going to leave, do what Patrick Reed did. And the reason is they know they're not going anywhere because they go to the live events. They feel that synergy. They see the crowds, okay? And if they know, hey, the LPGA exists and we get 4 times more viewers in the LPGA, and in parts of the world like Australia, they get 5, 6, 700,000 in TV viewership, which is not the couple million the PGA gets on average, but it's all over the world. They also get it in Asia, in South Africa, in Europe, in South America. So the average LIV event, according to Scott O'Neill, is getting between 2.5 to 3.5 million viewers globally, and some of them over 5, like Adelaide in South Africa. So there's a huge opportunity for sponsors to invest in LIV and investors to also invest in LIV. So let's look at the business plan. What leaked? Oh my God, something leaked. Would it fall off the copy machine? No, Scott O'Neill, this is his genius at work. He let the pitch deck get out to the media. Why? Because if LIV is so insignificant and not important, and it's small and it's going nowhere, why does every media outlet cover it? Why? If it's not important, why does the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Fox News, CNBC, CNN, Reuters, Axios, why do they cover it? If it's insignificant, because it's not. It's a threat to the status quo of the PGA Tour, even though it's not. They're supposed to work in tandem. They can work in tandem. And we'll talk about why. But this is why it's going to attract an investor, because it's all over the news every day and all the arguing points aren't real, right? the viewership's more than the other tours. So you can't use that argument. That argument no longer works. Even a Thursday where 24,000 people watched LIV overnight, the argument is invalid. Or else you have to say DP World Tour, Senior Tour, and the LPGA are even worse off. And maybe you do, but why isn't CNN or Golf Channel, why aren't they covering that? They don't, because they know LIV is popular around the world and LIV's popular here in the US. And the reason Virginia had so many viewers, it was one of its top 3 events ever seen in the US. And that's after losing Brooks Koepka and Patrick Reed and Eugenio Chacarra. No, he didn't make it. The media loves to say whenever they see Eugenio Chacarra, I think in a tournament, they're like, well, he left LIV. No, he got booted from LIV because he couldn't play. So here's the business plan points that leaked. LIV looks like it's going to be 10 events going forward. Now, I don't know if it's 10 events plus the finals, but we do know with those 10 events, it looks like several of them, not specifically a number, are going to be what they call majors, team majors. So I would assume Adelaide, Hong Kong, South Africa, if it's going to be 3, those are the biggest events. Hong Kong's not quite at 100,000, but it's like 60, 70,000. And then of course, Adelaide 110, South Africa 115. Those are hugely attended golf tournaments, hugely viewed golf tournaments around the entire globe, including here in the US. 500,000 viewers for an average sports event the other side of the world. That's pretty good. Yeah, it's not the British Open, which will have millions, but it's pretty good. Probably more than the NBA playoffs going on or the NHL playoffs going on here in America. I bet that 500,000 number is pretty close. All right, so we got 10 events. Those and then all of the events, even the majors, are going to at least mimic the baseline foundation is Adelaide in South Africa. We are going to create this in all the markets we have those 10 events. Now, what's not written there is if they're going to have 2 in Australia and 2 in South Africa, which they should. I've said that before. The players are going to have a say in it. And this is huge because you got to remember the Piff and Yasser, they were the ones that were making all the decisions for LIV. And Scott O'Neill was the leader, but everything had to get run by the big boys. But Scott O'Neill has run sports franchises so successfully, MSG Networks, the 76ers. So now Scott O'Neill, with the help of the players, will get to make the decisions going forward. And one of those decisions was to put 2 new board members on that are experts in restructuring business. And this is where the bankruptcy comes in, but we're going to get to that. So there's going to be player concessions and contracts. There's going to be 10 events. The events are going to mimic the most successful ones LIV has. It's going to be a member-driven tour. And there's going to be more sponsorships brought into the team, and the teams are going to take a front-standing place on how LIV goes forward. There's also going to be more YouTube engagement and content. So that's all that leaked. Plus, they're seeking $250 to $350 million, which won't be a lot. So the news would have you believe that LIV is also filing bankruptcy. And that might be true. But it might be true for a couple reasons. Now, I know everybody's an expert this week in bankruptcy filings, but here are some facts. LIV is going to domicile their headquarters in the United States, which has more bankruptcy laws, more favorable bankruptcy laws. That doesn't mean they're going to do it. And if that's the only evidence they have that LIV is looking for bankruptcy, then that's pretty thin. But we know they run on thin evidence anyhow. But if they have a little more evidence to see that that was a possibility mentioned somewhere to a LIV executive, well, it might be because of this. LIV still has contracts, right? Not huge ones. Let's just make a guess, right? They probably owe $100 million still to John Rahm. Probably not, but let's say they do, just to be conservative. And then let's say with all the other players, which they don't, Bryson's contract is done. Let's say all in all, they owe $250 million in contracts. Like DJ just signed for 2 years. He didn't sign for $50 million, not a chance. Probably signed for 20. You know, he's not even performing well in the majors. His value's going down. But let's just say, and then there's about 15 guys out there who don't even have a contract. They just love being there. They don't have to be there. That's what's crazy. So let's say they have $250,000 in contract debt. All right, so you go to a new investor and they're like, we don't want that contract debt. Okay, well, our board of directors has 2 new members and they're using, I think, Deutsche Bank, and they're experts in filing for bankruptcy to restructure our business. So the possibility is LIV files for bankruptcy, which carries the debt of those contracts. But the players are aware of it. It's not that they're not getting paid. Even John Rahm, who has the biggest outstanding ticket, said we're going to have to make concessions, and he's okay with it. Okay? So let's say that, because where's their other debt? Do they owe lease on an office in London? I don't know, but whatever it is, it's not going to be significant. The rumors they owed vendors and all that is all bullshit. It's going to be contracted services for players. So they put it into a filing, they filed bankruptcy, and now those contracts can get paid out as the terms of bankruptcy. So a new investor doesn't get sued for that debt. And that makes sense. That just protects them. And especially when the players are okay, because you could get sued, maybe not by a player, but maybe a player leaves 2 years from now. It's like, nope, I want that money. So they're doing it as a protection. LIV is reorganizing. They have a new board of directors. They have new leadership in the sense Scott O'Neill is now truly in charge, not Saudi Arabia. Because if they were filing bankruptcy, and let's go back, and it might not just be John Rahm's like, actually, I do want my 100 million. It could be agents, lawyers, and publicists that get a piece of those contracts that are like, I want my money. That was a big payday for me. And the publicist might sue, right? And they don't care if they got fired by John Rahm because they want their money. So that's a possibility, but not likely, because if it was they're just going out of business, then the PIF would just keep the debt. They don't care. Nobody's suing the PIF. Good luck. What are the other bankruptcy laws in Saudi Arabia? I doubt it. That's the crown prince essentially owns LIV Golf. That's not happening. So if you're going out of business, why even go through the trouble? You do it to restructure efficiently and intelligently. And coincidentally, two of the new board of directors did that. That's what they do. One of the guys just restructured the bankrupt Spirit Airlines here in the US. It's what he's known for. Okay. And then they sell off parts of the business. They find other opportunities. They reform. There's a million things they can do. So I think you should have a positive outlook and be bullish on LIV going forward, because it's the second largest golf tour in the world. And that's not bullshit. I told you the numbers of all the other tours and their viewership and their social media following combined. You put it together. LIV is like, yeah, hold my beer, because LIV is successful around the world. It's just that debt. So when the new investor comes in and they don't have to carry that debt, then they've got a hugely profitable business, because LIV just keeps growing and growing. You're only 5 years old, and they've already have 3 rock star events around the world. And if they have 10 events and 3 of them are already hugely successful, the other ones are going to be 2, because an investor is going to be a sports investor that knows how to grow franchises, like Scott O'Neill, who's friends with all these big time sports investors. And that's why LIV's going to keep growing, because they can make decisions for the players, from the players, instead of for the Saudi investment fund. And that's just a fact. Excuse me. So every player on LIV, not every, but just about all of them, have said, listen to Anaban, what he said a couple weeks ago. He said, I know at least a dozen players that don't want to go back to the PGA Tour. They want to be on LIV. Okay. Caleb Surratt, you saw it at the top. Great interview. That whole interview. They asked him also about, do you want to be on the PGA Tour? And he said it wasn't even a thought in his mind. He's like, no, I want DP World Tour status, and I'm confident in LIV Golf. Bryson DeChambeau, I'm confident in LIV Golf, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to work. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But he is putting 2 feet forward. He's an investment a new investor wants to pay. It's not going to be 500 million. He knows that, but maybe he gets equity in LIV. Now, there's also a report that says about 10 LIV players were getting together to help stabilize LIV, and they're going to put in about $150 million themselves together. Right? That's how much they believe in it. Do you know any other sports franchises or businesses that do that? Hey, we're going out of business. Hey, no, we're not, John. The employees are at the front door. They're all going to give up their paycheck. And so that's what LIV's doing. That's how much they believe in it. So cut the fucking bullshit. The players are in. I've heard the media even say, well, if they're all in, why don't they put up their money? Well, here you go. They've offered to, over 10 of them. Okay. And they haven't named them, but that's from multiple sources, public information. So let's see what happens. Let's enjoy Korea. Let's enjoy Spain, and let's enjoy LIV, because it's not going anywhere. And I can assure you, there will be many handshakes and scotch drinks or maybe beer happening in the hospitality tent in both Spain and Korea right now. Somebody's on an airplane right now, maybe yesterday, heading to Korea to take a look at what they're about to invest in. And that you can guarantee. So, growth in sponsorship to almost $500 million in the last 2 seasons. Growth in ticket sales exponentially. Just created a new market with a touch of the button when they sold over 100,000 tickets, and TV ratings off the roof for Europe and South Africa for what their TV ratings are. America's not the only one that exists. Hey, it wasn't too shabby in America getting 3, 4, 500,000 watching on like a sports app is pretty remarkable. It's pretty remarkable. I've heard the media say, well, the LPGA is struggling because you got to go to this app and that app. It's not that fucking hard. If you really like a sport, yeah, it'd be easier to turn on your clicker to channel 5, but that's not how the world works anymore. It's changing. So you need to change with it. And LIV knows that. And the partnership Scott O'Neil is going to make with the help of his players and Bryson DeChambeau is partnering with somebody that knows the digital streaming is the future of sports, and LIV Golf's going to be part of it. Because you know what what else they're doing? They're the leaders in, and just so significantly, is what they've done to golf. Here's why it doesn't compete with the PGA Tour. If they only have 10 events, then all those guys should be able to play the PGA Tour. Wouldn't you want Bryson DeChambeau playing all around the world as a PGA member to help promote the PGA back here so more people in Korea and Australia and Japan and India will watch the PGA? Yes. Why wouldn't you do that? They're only playing 10 fucking events, and they're not going to do it over the majors. And it's really not going to take away from the fucking Byron Nelson. It just makes sense. Get the ego, get the pride. Fuck these guys like Rory who are like, oh, I wouldn't do it for the money. You moved to America, to Jupiter, Florida to chase the money. So bullshit. Okay? Bullshit. Now, if you were Scotty Scheffler, I believe you because he's from Texas. You moved overseas, left your family. You almost left your family, but you know what I'm saying? You're chasing the money just like everybody else. But LIV has captured something why we're so passionate about it. Because if you've been to a LIV event, they've captured the essence of like a synergy that's hard to describe. And here's the only thing I can compare it to. When you add music into any situation in life, it creates a pulse. It creates a heartbeat. It could be mellow. It could be upbeat. Think about when you're in an elevator and the music's playing and everybody's awkwardly quiet, right? You're just hearing Tchaikovsky or whatever playing Beethoven in the elevator and everybody's silent. They have a routine. Or an NFL football game in America when it's third down, 1 yard to go for the home team. Everyone in the stadium is on their feet. They're screaming like a Viking going into battle, like 80,000 people. And all of a sudden, over the PA, AC/DC's playing Thunderstruck. Right? What are those people doing? They're screaming. They're like, there's so much energy. LIV has captured that, but this big, they brought it down to this much and then let it spread all over 18 holes on a golf course. And that music existing, when you're there live, you feel it. And if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. You might be not dancing on the fairway, but you're walking, music's playing. It could be techno, it could be country. One of the players sticks a great shot. The music's playing. They're like, that's my jam. And they're feeling it. So now the music's creating an ambiance that the players and the fans are feeling. And you're in it together with this synergy. And then all of a sudden, the moment of everything, the apex of sports, the agony of defeat, the success of a win. Well, there's music underpinning it all, that great shot that goes in or that shot that misses the hole. Either way, the music is tying everyone together in that moment. And that's why when AK walked down 18 in Adelaide or Burmese in South Africa, like people in South Africa would go to war with him as a general. Yeah, because they're from South Africa, but the feeling the passion, the energy that was created at a live event, all because of the music underneath it all. And that's fucking great. It's hard to translate on TV. I don't get that same feeling watching it on FS1, but I still love it. So if they could figure out a way to translate that passion, it would be hard to say live sucks, but people will still do it because that's what they do. Hey, I'll catch you next time on The Grip.